Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 5 of What If the Gate appeared in Remnant. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 13, Veil Part 2. The vital fairground has officially reopened, larger and better than before. While this has sparked safety concerns, General Ironwood insists that every precaution has been taken to prevent another incident. These include a possible second round of negotiations with the Empire's representative, Pina Company Lotta. In other news, grim activity all around Vale has decreased. While no real reason can be found for this occurrence, many travelers are making use of this period of relative safety to come to Vale to witness the vital festival tournament live. Nevertheless, huntsmen are on guard for any possible grim threat. Tickets are selling out fast for the now confirmed 80th Vital Festival Tournament, featuring not just the standard battles between teams of students from all 4 academies, but also exciting exhibition matches, a chance to meet a real-life mage, as well as a chance of witnessing abilities never seen before. Don't miss it. Ever since the gate had opened in the heart of the Vital Festival Fairgrounds, the entire area had been locked down tight by the Atlesian military. With the tournament back on track and ever more people entering Vale, the demand for food and other items quickly went beyond what the Vale shopping district could handle. As such, the council had put aside another patch of land for use by shopkeepers, essentially replacing the previous fairgrounds. This one had much more knights and even huntsmen patrolling, lest another tragedy occurred. While the large numbers of armed soldiers were an imposing presence, most of the people did their best to ignore them. It was here that the gang went, Team RWBY and their guests, Lele, Tuka, Rory, Pina, and Bozes, went, both for lunch and to buy new clothing for the girls from Falmart. Deciding to handle the clothing first, the group allowed Weiss to lead them forward. There are a lot of people here. Could this be a marketplace? Ah, look at that dress. Pina and Bozes were having a whispered conversation as they took in the various items on sale. Soon, Weiss came to a stop in front of a store. Behind its windows were numerous expensive-looking clothes, drawing everyone's attention. Without a second glance, Weiss strode into the store, snapping for an employee. The others followed her in, eyes wandering in awe of the exquisitely designed items. Team RWBY decided that, with her background, Weiss would be the best choice to choose out some suitable clothing. She hadn't given them a choice, anyway, already ordering an employee to bring some clothing out of Tuka, who was awkwardly standing around, overwhelmed. Shoving a pile of clothing into Tuka's hands, Weiss practically pushed her into a changing room to get changed. While waiting, she turned to Rory and Lele to ask, "Do you two want to wear something more formal too?" Rory walked one full turn around the store, looking at both male and female fashions, before declining, "I'm not really interested in these clothes. Besides, this is my priestess, formal wear." Lele too replied, "No need." Unlike Rory, she seemed completely uninterested in new clothing, instead choosing to read one of her new books. Weiss shrugged at their refusal and returned her full focus to finding an appropriate outfit for Tuka. While RWBY wasn't allowed to buy anything for themselves, they still took the opportunity to browse through the items for sale. On the other hand, Pina and Bozes were looking at the clothes on display, but their attention was focused on the quality of the fabric used to make them. They were currently wearing Imperial Nobles clothing, suitable for semi-formal events. Made of very high quality, hand-stitched silk, their attire was designed for use in garden parties or mounted activities, as well as a good set of casual clothing for a knight. At their waist were swords, the standard weapon of their order. They did not need any new attire, although, looking at the options available on display, they wondered if there was any way to convince Headmaster Ozpin to get them some. The sheer variety of goods on display made them wonder if the owner of this place was some kind of merchant prince, to be able to boast such a huge stock. Not only that, but the strange materials used to make them were also both sturdy and lightweight, making it perfect for clothing. They thought that it would sell well in the Empire. With nothing more to do in the shop, RWBY decided to get some fresh air. Rory and Lele followed her out, the clothing store holding nothing of interest. They had barely stepped out when a familiar figure greeted them. "Oh, hey," Emerald called out, "what a surprise, RWBY. Got your wallet this time." RWBY reached into her pocket and pulled it out, chuckling, "Yep. managed not to drop it. "So, what are you doing here?" "Oh, just helping Tuka get some formal clothing," RWBY replied. "Ozpin wants them dressed properly for their public appearance." "I don't need new clothes," Rory declined. "This is my formal priestess attire." "Oh, are they from the other world?" "Falmart, you get to show them around?" Emerald asked. "Yup. Hey, I heard that one of them has magic," Emerald pointed out. "I do. My name is Lele," she introduced herself, before going back to her book. Emerald took the opportunity to scan the girl, knowing that, nearby, Mercury was doing the same. Noting the staff, she asked, "Can you show me?" Putting the book aside, Lele agreed. Once more she created a ball of fire, causing the wind to swirl around the area. "Nice. I'm so jealous that you get to hang out with them," Emerald commented. "Hey, sure. Oh, we're going to lunch after this," RWBY said, as soon as Weiss is done. Through the glass windows, Weiss could be seen glancing critically at the clothes Tuka was wearing before ordering her to try another set. "Which might take a while. Wanna come with?" "I'd love to, but I'm afraid we're in a hurry. Besides, Merc isn't the best at socializing," Emerald declined, glancing over her shoulder, where Mercury was sniffing a boot. Again. "Well, see you later, I guess." "Oh, maybe we could come to visit them. You know where they're staying?" Emerald wondered. "Well yeah, Ozpin gave them a dorm near ours. It's the unused one, near where we first met. Come over anytime," RWBY responded enthusiastically. "No problem. See you later, then." Emerald responded with her own cheerful wave. Turning around, she began to leave, dragging Mercury away from the boot seller. Her chipper demeanor immediately dropped into a disdainful scowl. "Ah, what's wrong? I thought you liked them," Mercury commented. "I never want to see them again," Emerald replied miserably. "If we need to get more out of them, you're doing it." "Don't think so. Besides, we now know that the mage is actually capable of real magic, and where they're staying. That girl is so naive." "Yes. Cinder will be pleased," Emerald said, the thought brightening her up. While Weiss was still picking out an outfit for Tuka and convincing Rory and Lele to try some on as well, Pina and Bozes took notice of a bookstore nearby. When she noticed their interest in the shop, named Tuckson's Book Trade, Blake immediately volunteered to bring them over for a look, pulling the nobles off before anyone else could get a word in. In the bookshop, the girls from Falmart gasped at the variety of books on display. Without automation in the Empire, books were difficult to acquire there. This world was vastly different, with books being cheap and easily accessible. Leaving them to their browsing, Blake went over to the counter. She frowned when a woman stepped up to greet her cheerily. "Welcome to Tuckson's Book Trade. Home to every book under the sun. How may I help you?" "What happened to Tuckson?" Blake asked. The new shop owner replied, "He left town a couple of weeks ago." "All of a sudden, really, just packed his bags and left?" "Quite strange, but I'm assuming he had something important. He left me the store, and I've decided not to change the name. It's got a history in it, you know." "You knew him?" "Just a regular," Blake replied, before considering how to put forth her next request. "Do you happen to have the new book by, Patty Berdioler?" She whispered the name, glancing to make sure that there was no one else within earshot. Pina and Bozes seemed engrossed in a book, so that was fine. The owner's eyes widened. "Ooh, so you're Blake. Tuckson spoke about you sometimes, and your reading preferences." Blake blushed, not a word. "Do you have it?" The owner winked at her. "I won't tell a soul. In fact, Tuckson specifically pre-ordered one for you," she replied, ducking down behind the counter to look for it. "Why didn't you show up earlier?" "I thought you liked this place." "I do, but I've been busy," Blake answered, taking the offered book and stuffing it into her bag before anyone could see it. She paid for it, then thanked the new owner and turned to look at Pina and the book in her hand. "Was that Ninjas of Love? I knew I shouldn't have allowed you to decide." Weiss glared disapprovingly at the store that the group had stopped at. "What? Come on, you liked the noodles the last time. Our guests have traveled all the way from another world. Shouldn't we find something classier for them?" Weiss was in the middle of protesting when she was interrupted. "Come on, we're already here. It's too late to change. Everyone, take a seat," Yang said, as the familiar elderly man with gray hair came over to take their orders. Pina and Boses waited uncertainly for their food to come. They didn't have to wait long before the old shopkeep returned, along with their food. Almost quicker than the eye could see, he had given them all a bowl of noodles. A bowl larger than any Pina had seen. Pina cautiously peered over the lip of the bowl to look at the steaming noodles within, along with all kinds of ingredients that she could not identify. "Come on, let's eat," Yang called out, and the girls began digging into their similarly large bowls. Taking a deep breath, the high-bred noblewomen gingerly spooned up the noodles and slowly began to eat. Although it was the first time they had encountered such a dish, Pina and Boses did not protest it. Their training had exposed them to all kinds of strange and sometimes vile food. This was no different. "So, what did you think of Vale?" Yang began. "I like it here. There is so much knowledge about the natural world," Lele replied, focusing more on the book in hand than the bowl of noodles before her. "This world has such a collection of fine art," Boses added. Tuka smiled, thinking of the new harp that she had received. "The instruments here are great, too. Such exquisite craftsmanship." Rory licked her lips, "So many skilled fighters. This aura of yours is fascinating." "I'm curious, what exactly is aura?" Pina asked. "Aura is part of our soul," Ruby replied hesitantly, "something like that." Weiss sighed, "This is why you should pay attention in class, Ruby." Then, she explained, aura is a manifestation of the soul, a life force that runs through every living creature. It bears our burdens and shields our hearts. We learned this months ago, Ruby. Every living creature. Pina pressed. Everyone has it, even animals, Yang answered, "Trust me, you'd know if you met Sway, our corgi." "Even, us?" The question perked everyone's interest. "In theory, yes," Blake said, "human or elf shouldn't matter. As long as you have a soul, you have an aura. Perhaps we could try to unlock it. Let's finish our meal and return to Beacon," Pina suggested, "and try it." The group ate quickly after that, eager and curious to see if they could find some answers. Silently, Pina thought, "If I can figure out how aura works, the Empire may yet have hope." And a more selfish part wondered, how would it feel to wield such power? Will I have a semblance? Would she become unbeatable in combat or the greatest leader in the Empire's history? As Pina ate her noodles, she wondered just how she could use such a gift. She found the noodles to be delicious. For it is in passing that we achieve immortality. Through this, we become a paragon of virtue and glory to rise above all, infinite in wisdom and unbound by death. I release your soul, and by my shoulder, protect thee. Pina did not know what the incantation meant, but she felt its purpose. She felt the power surge through her, suddenly free, as though a part of her, once locked, had been released. Almost instinctively, she glanced at her hands, where a shimmering sheen of red light glowed briefly before fading away. She looked around, at the room assigned to Rory, Lele, and Tuka, where they, along with Team RWBY and Boses, had gathered to experiment. The other girls looked at her with odd gazes, and Pina felt powerful and confident, a queen among her subjects. The feeling wore off, and everything seemed to return to normal. It worked. Ruby cheered, and promptly collapsed onto a bed. "Ruby, are you alright?" "I'm fine," she waved the concern away and turned to Pina, who was still standing unmoving. "I've used my aura to unlock yours. The force that protects you is now your own. How do you feel?" "Powerful," Pina replied absently, sitting down. She tried to focus on the strange energy now present within her, a part of her as much as her limbs. Even having just unlocked her aura, it felt natural, familiar. "All right. Success. Who's next?" At Pina and Ruby's respective insistence, Boses and Blake stepped up, and the latter placed her hands on the former's chest. Exactly like Ruby had done with Pina herself. Weiss began to glow white, aura flaring as she chanted the same incantation as Ruby had done before. The ritual was soon complete, light flaring out. Boses stared, shocked, at her hands, and Pina gave her an encouraging smile. Next, Tuka was up, along with Weiss. The latter seemed to hesitate a little but nevertheless began the chant. Pina, now mostly recovered, tried to pay attention to the words. Were they a mere focusing strategy, or did they have actual power within them? Calming light filled the room, along with the scent of wet grass. Weiss drew away from Tuka, whose aura glowed serenely green. It lasted only a second more before fading, and Tuka looked over her hands. Amazing, she muttered. All right, Lele, you're up, RWBY called. No need, the mage replied. When the doctors examined me, they found that my aura was already unlocked. Having said that, her hands flickered with light as she proved her story. Lele, at the curious looks, elaborated. All mages learn a defensive spell as their very first magical ability. I believe that this is almost identical to how you use aura. All mages have their aura unlocked. Pina asked. If only she had known this sooner. Not exactly. While similar, our shield is different. Perhaps it is because of magic that we never truly tried to understand or control this force, leaving our understanding of the aura and soul lacking severely compared to Remnant, Lele speculated. Interesting. Maybe the general could run some tests. Pina immediately interrupted, maybe later. You haven't tried Rory's aura yet. When Team RWBY agreed, she breathed a small sigh. If the Empire could quickly harness the power of aura and magic, it may yet be able to come out of this war victorious. But the men in white could not know. Rory wasn't really interested in having her aura unlocked. She was already immortal anyway, but seeing as there was no reason not to do it, she agreed to Yang's incessant pestering. The two got into position and the ritual began once more. This time, Pina tried to remember the words, just in case she wanted to do it herself. If the Empire's entire army had a shield formed from their very own souls, it would be unbeatable. Rory's aura blew them all away. Literally. The Apostle's soul flared out with such force that the others were all thrown around the room. Pina expected the force to throw her into the wall, and it did. However, it barely hurt, as expected of such an impact, and she realized that it must have been her aura, forming a shield to cushion the blow. What the? Someone muttered. In the center of the room, blazing with blood-red light, Rory Mercury floated, her aura a physical presence that dominated the room. An apostle was once human, but now something more, a demigod, Rory explained, her voice echoing in itself, completely unlike her usual light tone. The soul evolves over 1,000 years, before shedding the mortal form to ascend into a god. As the soul grows, so too strengthens the aura, into a force of pure power. Then she collapsed, the suffocating aura dissipating. Before anyone could go to help her up, Rory leapt to her feet. That was weird, she said, back to her normal voice. What was that? Your aura was so powerful. RWBY asked. The apostle shrugged, you heard me. Or maybe Emroy, speaking through me. Anyway, we apostles are chosen by the gods to ascend. We're immortal, and our souls are something more than mortals. You said that aura is a manifestation of the soul, yes. A greater soul, a greater aura. I feel unstoppable. I need to test this. Well, the Vital Festival tournament is coming up soon. I wonder if you can sign up. Chapter 14, Mistakes. The day is nearly upon us. Tomorrow marks the first day of the 80th Vital Festival tournament, which promised to be unlike any other. In addition to a few exhibition matches between some of the best students from all 4 kingdoms, the guests from Falmart will also be there. Rumor has it that approval has been given for them to showcase what abilities they have. Stay tuned to see an apostle in action, and be prepared to witness true magic. Ozpin felt something strange about the princess of the empire. As he looked at Pina and her aide, Bozes, Ozpin couldn't help but feel that something had changed about her. Was it in her posture, more confident than before? Was it in her speech, more self-assured? With a cup of coffee before him and Ironwood standing to his side, the headmaster of Beacon Academy resolved to find out. So, these are our demands, Ironwood began. First, we want the safe return of the rest of our citizens. Because your knights have been a great help in locating and recovering them thus far, Princess, the council has decided to release all but the most violent of our prisoners in a show of good faith. This is no issue. My knights have worked hard. If you release my people back to us, I'm sure the nobles will be more willing to cooperate, Pina agreed. Good. Next is the issue of expansion, Ironwood continued, glancing at Ozpin. The council has given their approval to send troops and supplies through the gate to begin a permanent expansion. It will be the beginning of a new kingdom. Ozpin has expected something bold, but that was much more than a mere kingdom expansion. The council has what? This is. The council has decided that a world where magic exists and the grim do not is too valuable an asset to ignore, Ironwood interrupted, having expected Ozpin's negative response. You want to make a permanent city on Falmart. Pina cut in to clarify. What of the buildings that you have already constructed? Yes. A place where our people can live safely. Without the looming threat of Grim, every day. For now, all we have are military installations and static defenses, but we want to construct civilian buildings, as well as research laboratories, a CCT, and everything else a city needs. I'm afraid that the Empire will never agree to this. Not without something to gain in return. You tried to invade my world, Pina. This is what I and the Council want for compensation, Ironwood insisted. Pina frowned. My father will never accept this, and neither will I. You may have defeated our armies, but we will not just surrender like this. If it is a war you want, General, you can prepare for one. If that is what you wish, so be it. Ironwood refused to back down. We will conquer your world and take the land. Calm down. We will discuss this civilly. Ozpin's soothing voice cut through the tension. The other two backed down, if only slightly, at his words. Instead of preparing to simply resume the war, at least now the two seemed content to simply glare daggers at each other, for now. This discussion is getting nowhere, Ozpin spoke. Intentionally, he redirected the conversation to something that he had just figured out. Let us continue later. Now, Princess, if you don't mind me asking, when did you unlock your aura? Ironwood's eyes nearly popped out as he heard the question, and Pina tensed up. She then sighed, knowing that she could not hide such a thing for long. Yesterday, Team RWBY helped us. Us? Ironwood demanded. At the same time, Ozpin chose to ask, Team RWBY. Indeed. I was curious, so I convinced them, Ruby, Weiss, Blake, Young, to try it out. On me, Bozes, Tuka, Rory, and Lele. They fools. I am going to court-martial those, the general thundered, only to be interrupted by Ozpin, speaking calmly but firmly. They are not your soldiers, James. They are still young. We should have expected something like this. I will see that they are punished appropriately, but now is not the time. This is unforgivable. Defend them all you like, but I am going to make sure that Team RWBY never comes close to anyone from Falmart again. You shouldn't punish them so harshly, General. It was I who convinced them to do so, Pina cut in. Furthermore, they see us as friends. It does not matter that we are from different worlds, or that we once fought. If we are to have peace, this is the attitude that we should encourage in our people. Another surprise to add to the ever-increasing amount. Judging by Ironwood's lack of a response, he was as shocked. I will consider your suggestion, Princess, Ozpin said. Let us now focus instead on the relationship between our two worlds. James. I knew I should have sent Winter to keep an eye on them, Ironwood muttered. Getting back to the task at hand, he said, it matters not. My demands have not and will not change. Then neither will my answer. It appears that this conversation is getting nowhere. Perhaps we should resume at a later date. Ozpin once again played the peacekeeper. Pina frowned. Unfortunately, I've already stayed here quite long. I must return to the Empire soon. No worries, Ms. Company Lotta. Tomorrow is the first day of the Vital Festival tournament anyway, perhaps you would be interested in attending. Perhaps we can reconvene after that, Ozpin suggested. Yes, perhaps after watching my best. After watching the best of the kingdoms, you may reconsider your decision. That sounds acceptable, Pina agreed, deciding that watching her enemies in a close-up fight would be beneficial, even if the general was planning on scaring her. Pina refused to be cowed. Then, realizing that Winter had disappeared since RWBY was taking them around, she wondered, where is Ms. Winter, anyway? Specialist Schnee has other duties, ones that I now know should have been handed to someone else. RWBY should not have been left to run wild. Unfortunately, it is too late for that. One more day, Pina, then I'm afraid that our discussion must come to an end. One more day should be fine. I accept your offer. Excellent. Then that will be all for today. If you need anything, just let any of my soldiers know. And stay away from Team RWBY, Ironwood concluded. Glinda Goodwitch, disciplinarian and vice headmistress of Beacon Academy, was doing a patrol of Amity Coliseum when she came upon a strange sight. Rory was talking to a worker, smiling sweetly. The longer she looked, however, the less sweet and the more sinister the smile on her purple lips seemed to be. The poor man she was facing was also terrified, desperately looking at Glinda for help. "Ms. Mercury, what are you doing here?" Glinda asked, stepping forward and drawing the apostle's attention. The relived worker took the opportunity to dart away. "Ah, Glinda, was it? I want to join the tournament," Rory said. But this fool, she paused to point at the worker, who had by now disappeared, and, finding no one, shrugged, "But your guys won't let me." "I'm afraid that is not possible, Ms. Mercury. You must be a member of a team studying in one of the 4 academies to join." "That's no fun," she complained, then perked up. "How about we battle instead?" When Rory rushed her, Glinda did not even flinch. In a moment, her riding crop was out, pointed at Rory. It glowed purple, and the apostle found herself suspended in the air. Glinda adjusted her spectacles as she spoke. "Control yourself, Ms. Mercury. You are a guest here. Act like one, and not a bloodthirsty beast." Rory tried wriggling free, but Glinda's telekinesis immobilized her completely. "Like fighting in the arena instead of out here." "Not possible, I'm afraid. Even if Ozpin decided to bend the rules, your immortality and lack of an aura would surely be unfair." "Ah, but I've unlocked my aura," Rory happily announced, releasing a surge of power that completely broke Glinda's telekinetic grip and allowed her to fall to the ground. She landed in a crouch, smiling ear to ear. Glinda's face was a constant change of emotions as she processed the information and drew the conclusions. Her features then settled into a terrifying look that made even the apostle of the god of death and madness step back, the smile wiped from her face. The arena was empty, so Team RWBY had brought Lele and Tuka there. The young mage wanted to test out her experimental new abilities, which were the result of a long read through Remnant's science. Looking over the familiar place, Lele nodded, "Yes. This will do." Glinda Goodwitch, usually manning the controls, had been otherwise busy, so RWBY took it upon herself to operate the room. From her position at the controls of the arena, RWBY spoke, her voice amplified by the speakers. "All right, everything's up and running nicely. Who wants to go first?" "I'll do it," Blake replied, jumping into the ring to join Lele, who was currently checking her staff. "You sure, Blake? Doc told you to take it easy," Young asked, concerned. "I'll be fine," she dismissed the concern, pulling Gamble's shroud from her back. The original blades had been lost in the invasion and never recovered, so Blake had gotten RWBY's help in forging a new one. Blake had made it almost identical to the previous version, with just several small changes, despite her leader's insistence on adding more firepower. "Ready," RWBY called out. "Ready," both Blake and Lele replied. On the screen, their aura bars appeared, both healthy green. Without further notice, RWBY turned down the lights and began the battle. Lele made the first move, lowering her staff to point at her opponent. A small blast of fire formed and flew quickly at Blake, who immediately dived aside. As the fireball exploded harmlessly in a shower of sparks against the arena's protective force field, Blake charged forward. Lele re-aimed and fired again at the rapidly closing Blake. This time, she simply slashed with Gamble's shroud, cutting the fireball and causing it to dissipate with a hiss. Keeping her speed, Blake prepared to engage Lele in melee. The mage frowned, stepping back and swinging her staff in a large arc that left a glowing trail of light. 6 glowing orbs appeared in this trail, each shimmering purple. By now, Blake was ready to strike, so, still retreating, Lele attacked. All 6 orbs blasted with magical energy, forming an unavoidable wall of lasers at Blake. The lasers tore through their target, which faded as the shadow clone was destroyed. The real Blake appeared from above, leaping down with Gamble's shroud swinging. Lele tried to bring her staff up to halt the assault, but her opponent was simply too skilled in close combat. Rapid slashes cut at her aura magic shield, sending Lele stumbling to the edge of the arena. Stumbling, Lele released a wide burst of flame around her to force Blake back. With the temporary respite provided, Lele created a series of rings around her staff, each larger than the previous. Blake was quickly on the offensive again, darting side to side in preparation to avoid the obvious massive incoming attack. Sometime along the way, she left a clone behind, making it look like a pair of her attacking from both left and right. Lele, instead of trying to keep up with her opponent, simply unleashed her spell into the middle. The rapid, sequential explosions caused the entire area to erupt in fire. Both Blakes disintegrated under the flame, and Lele had only a moment to be shocked before the real Blake slid out from below the roaring inferno, mostly unaffected. With a few quick blows, the huntress in training sent the mage out of the arena. Blake wins, RWBY declared. Lele picked herself up. She concluded, my magic is too slow to match your speed. Unless I can create some quicker spells, there is no way for me to achieve victory in close range. Combustion seems to be useful for. Analyze later, watch now, Yang said, lightly smacking her on the back before jumping into the ring. Who's next? I need to flex these guns. I'll go. Tuka volunteered, jumping into the ring. She then frowned as she experimentally tried to draw on nature's power. The air was around her, but the bulk of the magic was being blocked by the arena walls. Can we take this outside? It'll help my elf nature magic. No need. RWBY called out enthusiastically. Pressing a few buttons, she activated the retractable roof. The roof slid away smoothly, allowing the sunlight and fresh air to enter freely. Tuka took a deep breath and felt the comforting embrace of the wilds. She began to draw on the unbound power, causing a light wind to begin to swirl around her, bringing with it several leaves caught in the zephyr. Abovehead, the clouds darkened slightly as she prepared to draw in them. Exhaling, she called out, ready. All right, Yang shouted, slamming her fists together and creating a spark, let's go. With that, she leapt into the air and fired her shotgun gauntlets back, sending her flying straight at Tuka. The sky darkened in an instant, and a bolt of lightning shattered the sky. It struck down in a flash, directly hitting the flying Yang. The electricity ran through her body, sending her out of control. Yang ended up tumbling along the ground, and Tuka smiled at her as she went out of the ring. Tuka wins. That's the fastest Yang ever lost before, RWBY commented. Yang groaned as she stood up, shaking her limbs to clear the lingering tingling. Lucky shot, she huffed, rematch. Glinda Goodwitch took that moment to slam the doors open without even touching them, striding into the room where she had claimed dominion over. As Team RWBY and their friends' hearts all froze, the disciplinarian began to shout. Team RWBY. Ozpin's office, now. Do you know why you are here? General Ironwood's tone alone made RWBY tense up. His disapproving gaze and that of Ozpin, sitting at his table, and Glinda, standing beside him, did nothing to lighten the mood. No, RWBY cautiously answered. Why did you unlock Pina's aura, Ms. Rose? Ozpin asked, getting straight to the point. They asked us too. Besides, I was curious, you know. It's the first time we've got a chance to properly interact with people from a different world. They're so different from us. I mean, they are our enemies. Ironwood thundered, his outburst stunning the students into silence. Have you forgotten already? Their empire, tried to invade Vale. They killed, burned, and kidnapped. They wanted to destroy us. They still do. I know. I was there, Blake evenly replied, while her team was still frozen. I was kidnapped and taken into their world. And yet I still want peace. Do you know why? I don't care why. If peace is possible, it will be because they dare not fight us. Now that Pina has her aura, she threatens war. Do you want to see more people slaughtered? Ironwood shouted. Calm down, James, I'm sure. Not this time. Ironwood interrupted Glinda, an act few others dared to try, too much is already at stake. We must make headway into Falmart. We must learn their magic. This may be our best chance at stopping Sal. Stopping the Grim once and for all. With RWBY silently listening to the general, Ozpin asked, anything to add, Team RWBY? The team was silent. General Ironwood had made it clear that there was much more at stake than what they had initially thought. The war was not over, even if Vale was at peace and the vital festival was still going ahead. The princess was not here to sightsee but to discuss the futures of both worlds. Only an oversight had allowed them to become close to the princess and the others. And apparently, the magic of this new world could end the threat that had plagued Remnant since the beginning of humanity. Well, technically you didn't tell us any of this beforehand. RWBY began. She trailed off when Ironwood glared at her. Do you think? James, please. The girls are right. We did give them free rein, without letting them know exactly what was going on, Ozpin admitted, and Ironwood could not disagree, so he simply glared. Anything else? The team wanted to talk about friendship and bonds of trust, but one look at the general and Glinda convinced them that that line of thought was doomed. Nope. No. Nothing. Nah. Ozpin raised an eyebrow but chose not to comment. Like a judge to a guilty criminal, he spoke in an even voice, very well. Some of this may have been our fault, but I still have to punish you. Having discussed this with Ironwood, your punishment will be as follows. 1. You are banned from participating in the upcoming Vital Festival tournament, but you are allowed to watch. 2. You are hereby banned from any interaction with Pina Company Lotta, Boza's Company Palesti, Rory Mercury, Lele Lalina, and Tuka Luna Marceau, as well as any other person from Falmart. Permanently, until I or the general say otherwise. 3. After you graduate, you are to serve at least 1 year of probation before receiving your full huntsman licenses, subject to your behavior. Any questions? What? How is that fair? All you did was hand our enemies our greatest weapon, Ms. Rose. Ironwood thundered, consider yourselves lucky that you are young and that Ozpin was willing to speak up for you. Consider yourselves lucky that you are not expelled, blacklisted, and court-martialed. Now leave. Team RWBY couldn't leave quickly enough. When it was just the 2 headmasters left in Ozpin's office, he asked, don't you think that was a little harsh? Harsh. If their armies come marching in and matching us in strength, you may want to reconsider. Goodbye, Ozpin. With that, General Ironwood turned to leave. Wait, Ozpin called out, have your forces been keeping track in the Grim? Is something strange happening? Funny you should ask. They're the least active I've ever seen. Almost no attacks, and definitely nothing major. Why? Ironwood asked. She planning something? Ozpin's answer was vague and mysterious, yet his old friend understood it perfectly. With a frown, James said, Salem. She's been too quiet. With this kind of coverage, there's no way that she's unaware of the gate. And with her capability of magic, the talk of gods and immortal apostles running around, Salem is planning something. She will come. We must be ready when she does. My forces will make sure that she doesn't come close, the general promised, placing his scroll onto the table. A holographic projection of his fleet, flying over a peaceful vale, appeared. When the people look to the sky and see my fleet, they feel safe. And our enemies will feel our strength. Qrow's low laughter had begun as soon as Ironwood finished. Everyone immediately turned to him. When did you even get here? Ironwood demanded. No, Jimmy, Qrow said, slurring his words slightly, not about me. About you and your incredibly stupid plan. You think they're scared of your little ships. When she comes, Jimmy, your ships will be nothing. And what would you do, Qrow? Challenge her to a drinking contest. No, even though I'll win. It's too late for an army. They're here, already in the school. Not just anyone, but those responsible for Autumn's condition. What? Glinda exclaimed. No army will stop them, Jimmy. Frustrated at their apparent lack of understanding for his actions, Ironwood sighed as he walked forward and picked up his scroll from the desk. So then, what would you suggest we do? The people need a guardian, a symbol of peace and comfort. Not an army. Not a symbol of war and conflict, Glinda said. I suggest we find our guardian, Ozpin finished firmly. No one noticed the black queen chess piece that flickered on the screen for just a second. So, this Falmart still has magic. Who are they? Where did this come from? The woman with deathly pale skin and dark black veins muttered, shaking her head, too many questions. My spies can find nothing, perhaps not even Ozpin knows. She looked at her followers and gave a chilling smile. And those fools wish to display their power in the Amity Coliseum. What could they be planning? Watts, she commanded, is the virus ready? At a word, the Atlesian forces are yours to command, the scientist replied, my old friend James has been helpful. Good. The Grim have been lying in wait. When the time comes, I will muster my full might to take the gate. Inform Cinder of her role. When I strike, she must be ready, she ordered. Now ignoring the presence of her underlings, Salem turned to look out into the savage Grimlands. You think you can keep this new power to yourself, Ozpin? I will show you true power. No more games, Ozpin. No more hiding. This time, you will fall. By my hand. Chapter 15. Amity Arena. This is Lisa Lavender, reporting live from Amity Coliseum. After the delay caused by the tragedy of the gate, the time is finally here to kick-start the 80th Vital Festival Tournament. This monumental event is being projected to the homes and screens of millions around the world. From Atlas to Vacuo, everyone will get to witness this great event. Unfortunately, it has been confirmed that Rory, Tuka, and Lele will not be making any appearances beyond being spectators. While this is unfortunate, the tournament still promises to be greater than any other. It was early in the morning when Pina and Bozes were escorted by a female guide wearing the now familiar white Atlesian uniform. They took an airship to Amity Coliseum, the size of which kept surprising her, and landed there. The soldier led them to the VIP seats, a double layer of chairs at the very front of the seating area. Rory, Lele, and Tuka were already there, as were many other students. Further inspection revealed that Team RWBY was also present, even if they were seated far away from the Falmart group. Behind them, hundreds of spectators waited eagerly for the event to begin. In front of them was a plain, flat circular area, most likely the arena where the fighters would battle. The size was larger than any Empire Coliseum and the atmosphere unlike any she had known, but Pina resolved to pay close attention. She would analyze the fighters, every move to see their strategies and learn how to mimic or counter them. After all, now that she had aura, surely she could learn something from watching. Could the general really have thought that she wouldn't try? It seemed like a huge oversight, but Pina wasn't going to question the opportunity. Please take a seat, the exhibition match will begin shortly, their guide said, gesturing for Pina and Bozes to sit beside the others. If you want refreshments, signal one of the serving staff. If you have any other requests or questions, let me know. Pina did as instructed, feeling herself sink into the comfortable chair. Bozes followed her lead and their guide left, but Pina was sure that she would be nearby. Welcome, everyone, to the 40th Vital Festival Tournament. Professor Port's voice boomed across the entire stadium, amplified so that every person could hear him clearly, not just those physically in the floating coliseum, but also those around the world watching its broadcast live. My name is Professor Peter Port, and this with me is Professor Glinda Goodwich. Indeed, the huge screens around the coliseum showed Port and Glinda, who were both sitting in a booth with microphones before them. That's right, we will be your announcers for today. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The first of the exhibition matches is a one-on-one battle, so let's welcome our first combatant, Winter Schnee. Port called out. The crowd cheered as she entered the arena, wearing her usual white attire. After waiting a few seconds for the noise to die down, Winter's introduction began. Winter Schnee is a specialist in the Atlesian military's Special Operatives Unit. She has the hereditary Schnee family semblance of glyphs, a powerful semblance with many uses. Her weapon is a Del Bloom, a pair of dual-wield dueling sabers. Despite being one of the youngest specialists in the Atlesian military, her skill in the blade and mastery of her semblance is extraordinary, Glinda expressionlessly said. Wearing her usual blue and white coat, Winter strode confidently into the center of the arena. Her sword in hand, she drew it across the air in a quick slash. Behind her, the Schnee snowflake appeared, a glyph conjured by her semblance. This was what Winter was preparing for instead of supervising them, Pina realized. If the casual display of power to create that glyph that slowly rotated behind her was any indication, Winter was an incredibly powerful fighter. Pina had not really got to see the full capabilities of any Remnant fighter, so she looked on closely, eager to learn. Port began the introduction for Winter's opponent. Today, Ms. Schnee will be fighting a student from Beacon Academy, Ariel Fogzine. Ariel entered the arena from the opposite side of where Winter did. Pina recalled that, back in Falmart, a woman named Vila Fogzine was leading the recon team. This had to be the daughter she had mentioned. The crowd cheered for her as well. Ariel ignored them, focusing fully on Winter. Ariel is the heiress of Fogzine Manufacturing, a large manufacturing and research company. Her semblance is projection, allowing her to create copies of anything she touches, similar to how hard light dust operates. Her weapon is Heaven's Gate, a multi-form combat staff. Despite her age, Ariel is one of the best fighters in Beacon Academy, capable of defeating full-fledged huntsmen. Ariel wore light armor, made of shining golden metal. She had a pair of arm guards, one of which had a detailed metal dragon coiled around it. She wielded a staff, much like her mother. At its tip, a pair of wings spread out, both beautiful and deadly sharp. They glowed as Ariel closed her eyes. When she opened them a moment later, a pair of golden, shining wings, exact replicas of those in her weapon, flared to life on her back. With a quick, embellishing spin, Ariel raised Heaven's Gate to point at Winter. An angel. With her golden aura, shining armor and now those wings, Pina had no other word to describe her. Her mind was frozen and her mouth open. The large score screen came to life, showing portraits of both Winter and Ariel. An aura bar loaded up for each, both full and green. Several screens around the arena changed to show a close-up view of the two fighters, who both wore the same knowing smile. The smile of old friends ready to put on a glorious show. These two impressive fighters will battle it out in the first of our exhibition matches today, in the ice and fire biomes. The outer area of the arena floor fell away, revealing a pit into the depths of the stadium. The holes were very quickly filled up by a pair of artificial biomes, unlike anything Pina had ever seen. The half behind Winter was an icy tundra, speckled with sharp ice shards. The other half, behind Ariel, was much more volatile, filled with bubbling lava and bursts of fire. Remnant had created entire artificial biomes, dangerous and unpredictable, for no purpose other than entertainment. Even the Empire's harshest winter was less severe than the pure sheets of ice, and the lava matched that within active volcanoes. Pina gulped as a scary thought hit her. Did these conditions exist in Remnant? Was that why their fighters trained to fight in such unforgiving environments? Begin. Deep in thought, Pina almost missed the start of the match. Winter blasted off her glyph with such speed that she seemed to teleport, appearing at her foe. Pina did not have time to react before the two began to do battle, metal ringing out. Oh ho, they're getting right into it. Winter initiated the battle instantly with a lightning-fast blitz, but her opponent was prepared, Glinda pointed out. Having used the greater reach of her staff to knock Winter's charge aside, Ariel counterattacked by spinning her staff in horizontal circles around her body. Whenever Winter tried to strike, Heaven's Gate's longer form would knock Adele Bloom aside, preventing her from landing any blows. With a direct attack out of the question, Winter decided to leap into the air, white glyphs appearing in a hemisphere around Ariel. Using one as a platform, Winter darted downwards, rapier outstretched. Ariel nearly managed to halt her staff's momentum to pull it above her, blocking the aerial attack. Even then, she had barely a moment to recover, for Winter simply leapt to another glyph before rocketing back at a different angle. Ariel spun on the spot, doing her best to anticipate the next attack and block it with Heaven's Gate. The rings of metal on metal showed her relative success, but for each hit she blocked, another would sneak past and dent her aura. Winter is using her semblance to attack rapidly from multiple angles, forcing her opponent on the defensive. Glinda noted, if Ariel cannot break out of the ring of glyphs, she will be defeated. Pina barely heard the commentary as her mind struggled to keep up. Winter was barely visible as a blue blur, dashing between her artificial platforms. She could not even keep track of Winter, she realized. How was Ariel even managing to defend? Her aura was dropping, but slowly. Ariel's wings flared with light before they thrust down heavily and sent her into the air. More than just for show, her wings brought Ariel up and out of the oppressive glyphs, Heaven's Gate shattering the one that blocked the path. With her opponent now freed from her containment, Winter's remaining glyphs faded away. She took the opportunity to split Adele Bloom, removing the smaller rapier from within the larger. Now dual-wielding, she crouched slightly, ready for another assault. Wings flapping slowly, Ariel remained hovering in the air, her weapon changing as well. The wing blades slid down the side of the staff, spreading out to become a cross guard. The rod of the staff flattened out as internal machinery whirred into action, transforming Heaven's Gate into a heavy twin-bladed sword. Wielding it with both hands, she turned its deadly tips to Winter. The two met in combat once more. Winter leapt into the air, once again forming numerous glyphs to use as platforms. Ariel had no such need, her wings allowing her full freedom as they initiated an airborne battle. Pina watched the dizzying display open-mouthed. If one of them attacked the Empire, attacked her Rose Knights, what could she do? They flew out of reach of swords and spears. Their weapons could shatter any shield. Magic was too slow, it would take too long to prepare, and most likely miss anyway. An arrow barrage might hit them, but Ariel burst forward with explosive speed, slamming Heaven's Gate into Winter. The impact of the blow took away a good portion of her aura and sent her flying out of control to crash into the icy biome in an impact that should have killed any man. Instead, she jumped back to her feet almost immediately, showing no damage. Watching Ariel fly uncontested in the air, Winter snatched up a few shards of ice dust lying around her, dislodged by her crash. She smirked. "Ah, it seems that Winter has a plan," Port called out. Analyzing the situation, Glinda added, "Ms. Fogzine has the advantage of mobility in the air. Winter must ground her to achieve victory, and I believe she knows how." With a flick of her wrist, Winter used Adele Bloom to send a barrage of sharp ice shards at Ariel. She dodged immediately, drawing her projected wings close to send herself into a steep dive. When she was a few meters above the ground, she unfurled her wings, slowing herself to a hover, sword in hand. A large ice spike streaked towards Ariel, launched by Winter at her opponent. The unexpected projectile was too close and too fast, and Ariel could barely bring Heaven's Gate up, marginally deflecting the shard aside. Instead of a direct blow, Ariel felt the projectile narrowly miss her body, and pierce a wing, shattering the projection into glittering dust. Unbalanced, Ariel fell gracelessly, spinning as she tried to correct her fall. All she managed to do was avoid the lava pool below her, crashing onto solid ground. Winter was over her immediately, pressing her advantage. Adele Bloom's greater half stabbed into the ground, where Ariel was a moment ago. The specialist kept up her attacks, slashing rapidly with both blades of her weapons as her opponent was forced to retreat. Ariel rolled as Adele Bloom swept above her head, picking up a stray fire dust crystal as she did. She immediately inserted the volatile crystal into the base of Heaven's Gate's blades, where it glowed brightly as the weapon drew upon the power within. When Winter attacked again, blades slashing, Ariel countered with a massive upward cleave. With a roar of fire, Heaven's Gate left a blazing trail that lingered in the air, sending Winter flying back, her aura glowing as it turned the heat away. As Ariel raised her now blazing sword, Winter dropped onto one knee and sunk her smaller rapier into the ground. At her feet, a glyph with a new design appeared, spinning. Beside her, an identical one appeared. From this new glyph, a beast, glowing blue, took shape. Pina recognized the Beowulf. Even if it were a mere copy of the real one, or perhaps an image, it struck fear into her heart. If endless numbers of such monsters plagued Remnant, how could they survive? Would the Empire withstand their might? How brave, how powerful, are these people, to thrive amid such danger? It seems that Ms. Schnee has summoned a Beowulf. Indeed, Professor. The Beowulf is her preferred summon, fighting alongside their creator to overwhelm opponents. Oh ho! Can Ms. Fogzine survive the onslaught? The Beowulf summon howled, bounding forward. It leapt as it neared Ariel, raising a deadly paw to swipe at her. It was promptly cleaved apart by a single slice of its target's flaming blade. The destruction of her first summon didn't faze Winter in the slightest. Two more appeared, both charging forward. They too were cleaved apart by Ariel, who began to approach her opponent. Seeing that her Beowulfs were not working, Winter created a larger summoning glyph above her. A new, greater summon took form, one with the body and head of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the tail of a scorpion. A legendary manticore. Even as the terrifying creature leapt forward, fangs gleaming, Pina couldn't help but wonder what other forms the grim could take. A wolf, a bear, a manticore, were there. A roar shook Pina out of her contemplations. She looked back to see that the dragon bracelet that Ariel was wearing had come to life. Shining gold, a long, serpentine dragon burst forth, a direct, if 100 times larger, copy of the bracelet. Its wings burst open, sending the projected dragon into the air, where the manticore met it with a fearsome growl. They engaged in a spectacular battle, blue and gold blazing in equal measure as the summon and construct went at each other with fang and claw. Below them, Winter and Ariel struck in mirror of their creations. Winter's lighter rapiers clashed with Ariel's heavier sword in a constant metallic ring. The ice that Winter expertly wielded met the raging fire of her opponent, sending forth bursts of steam that clouded the air before swiftly dissipating. Back and forth they battled, blades moving almost too fast to see. It was less of a fight and more of a dance. One where a misstep meant not just a sore foot but being thrown across the arena. Where blades sang and struck and blocked. Pina was left in awe at the display of dazzling skill. Over their heads, the manticore and the dragon disengaged from their duel, retreating to either side of the arena. Both were injured, as much as animated constructs could be, but that did not stop them from charging back into battle over the center of the arena. They met and began to spin around each other, forming a blazing ball of blue and gold. Below, Adele Bloom and Heaven's Gate met, both unleashing the full force of the dust within them. Roaring fire met freezing ice, causing a massive shockwave that shook the stadium and caused a huge cloud of steam to erupt at the center of the arena. It blasted upwards, a spinning hurricane of boiling water, straight at the two fighting constructs. The water tore through them, destroying them both instantly. The summoned manticore and the projected dragon both exploded in a storm of glittering particles. Time seemed to stand still as the spotlights glittered off thousands of tiny blue and gold particles. They filled the air, dense enough to have a solid existence, yet scattered enough that they did not block the fighters below. Winter's two rapiers were locked against Ariel's larger sword. The former, glyph at her back, was shimmering slightly as the light reflected off the ice shards around her. The latter, wings blazing strong, had flickers of flame glowing around her. The ground around them was cracked, sending up more fire and ice into the chaotic scene. And on both faces was a huge grin, of a successful and glorious demonstration between old friends. The moment passed, and the crowd erupted in cheers as the remaining particles faded away. Pina, however, was too busy being frozen in shock and awe. How could the Empire fight such power? The power of fighters who could summon legendary allies, who could manipulate the elements of the world, who could battle so violently for entertainment. Was there any force that could hope to challenge them? It would take years for her to get to such a level, if it were even possible. It didn't matter that she had aura. Remnant would crush her armies if they dared fight. This was what Ironwood had wanted her to see. This was why he had insisted that she stay. The alarms began to blare. In the shocked silence apart from the alarms that followed, the calm, electronic voice began spelling out the imminent doom. Warning, grim attack underway. Evacuate immediately. Threat level. Unclassified. And this at the end of part 5 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.